Hey there, it's Silver. This is Backpack Hero. So this is a game that I've been playing on and off throughout most of its early access campaign. Now that it's actually released as a full 1.0, it's definitely the perfect time to take a look at it, because this is a really solid turn-based RPG with some roguelite elements, but not necessarily. It's optional if you want to play it that way, which is pretty cool. So at first, in its original incarnation, while it was in early access, it was just like a pure run-by-run roguelite. But now it actually has like a campaign mode, a whole story mode, with some like permanent town progression and stuff tied to it, but it also still has the original roguelite mode if you want to play that as a quick run. So there's quite a lot here to enjoy, but to get into it, what actually is it? Well, have you ever played a game with a grid-based inventory? You know, like Resident Evil 4 or Diablo or something like that? Well, this game is all about that, and if you're like me and you love grid-based inventories, then this is going to be right in your wheelhouse, because this is a game entirely based around a backpack that you fill up with random pieces of loot, and all of the stuff that you can use in battle is based entirely around what you've been able to fit in your backpack by organizing it all together. So it starts off pretty simple. You will just have a basic 3x3 9-cell backpack and a couple of items to start yourself off with. Usually in a run it is a basic sword, a basic shield, and some food to eat. And don't worry, there is not a hunger system in this game. That's actually for use in battle. It's a consumable. And you'll be given a paper map that will show vaguely what's around you, and you can click on different nodes of the map to actually go there and see what's there. So you'll come across all sorts of things aside from battles, like NPCs to talk to, shops to buy stuff from, little events that may allow you to trade certain types of items for others, or maybe some gold laying on the ground to pick up, or an experience-giving plant or something like that. There's all sorts of stuff to find, but of course the main event are the battles themselves. Battles in this game are turn-based, and you have an energy system that determines what you can actually do. So you will be given a Slay the Spire-like preview of what the enemy's intents are, so you can plan your turn out that way, and you can just click on stuff in your backpack to use it, and everything has its own energy cost, and you can just use as much as you have energy left. You also have a basic scratch option that costs 1 energy for just a small amount of physical damage if you run out of other stuff to use, because sometimes it's possible to actually put everything on cooldown depending on what sorts of weapons you might have and not actually have anything to attack with, so you can use your scratch in emergencies. So you want to use things like your shield to build up some shield over your health gauge to make sure that you have at least as much shield as the incoming damage so that you don't take any damage, and then you can use your weapons to deal damage to the enemies, and eventually you kill them. And once you kill them, you'll get some experience, which allows you to level up. Every time you level up, you can choose some extra cells in your backpack to expand it, so you can get a larger and larger inventory every time you level. And then you'll usually be given a bunch of loot at the end of a battle to choose from, and you can usually choose a few, oftentimes 3 items after a battle, usually any 3 that you want, and can fit into your backpack. And you can of course rotate things and move things around however you wish in order to try and fit everything possible and have the most sort of optimum build. And you'll often find that a lot of the stuff you can find is based around where you put it, so you do have to actually be careful about what you put where. For instance, you may find a suit of armor that only works if it has adjacent other pieces of armor like helmets, boots, and shields, so you're going to want to put it in the right place to where it can actually make its effect most valuable to you. Or you may find a gemstone that improves the power of every melee weapon around it, but it floats, so it'll always float to the very top slot in whatever column you put it in, so you have to sort of rejigger your backpack in order to get all your weapons around it, because it's not really movable from that top row. It's got to be there somewhere. And you'll find all sorts of exotic items, even more with modding, but more on that in a minute. And yeah, there are more advanced types of items that you'll eventually find that require more finagling with your backpack to make them work. Like, for instance, a bow. If you want to use a bow, you gotta have arrows, and arrows are usually more powerful the more empty slots there are to their right. So you want to sort of organize your backpack in a way where you have the bow to the far left as possible, and some arrows in front of it with a lot of empty space in front of them so that they're as powerful as they can be. Or you may find some magic items that actually require you to have a mana network set up. So you have to have sort of like a circuit through your backpack of various items that can hold and transfer mana that builds up a certain amount of mana in its network and allows you to actually spend it on like a connected wand or something like that in order to use an effect. These are often very valuable because sometimes they don't use much energy, if any energy at all, despite the fact that they have very powerful effects. They just require some finagling to get the whole mana system to work instead. So you're sort of taking some of that energy burden and putting it instead into a space burden to make sure that you can actually have this network powered correctly and be generating mana for use every turn. But as you go and your backpack expands more and more, you'll eventually be able to, get a more complex variety of stuff and things. There are also lots of consumables, like that aforementioned food, which gives you energy when you eat it. Usually it has two uses. One almost empties the plate, and the second will empty it completely. And then there are also like potions and shurikens and grenades and stuff like that. There are all sorts of things you can find that are meant to be just used once. And there are also some tricky items that their best use isn't immediately visible, like the big hammer that takes up like 4 spaces and doesn't do very much damage, but it freezes enemies, which causes them to take multiplied damage as you use it, and you can stack up multiple freezes at once in order to do hugely increased damage. If you combine that with a bunch of tiny daggers that cost nothing to use but normally don't do very much damage, suddenly you have like a bunch of free damage you can do every turn, like a couple dozen out of nowhere, because you have this hammer. So it's all about making efficient use of your backpack space. You want to combine items that synergize well with each other in the right physical configuration with each other to have everything work together and make you super powerful in combat. And you do need to figure this out relatively quickly because the enemies do get quite hard and very threatening pretty fast. So you are expected to sort of understand a build that you may be going for and have some efficient use of it by like the end of the first part of the dungeon. And as you go through the dungeon, you will find all sorts of other features and things, as well as NPCs to talk to and trades to make and shops to buy from, chests of goodies to find, and you'll also sometimes find collapsing sections. These will always be right before a split in the dungeon where you can only choose one or the other, because as soon as you go down one, the other section will collapse and be blocked off. And then eventually you'll get to the 3rd floor of a particular dungeon, and at the 3rd floor you will face a boss, and the bosses are usually like final exams for making sure you have a good build, effectively. Like if you don't have an efficient build by the time you face the final boss of a dungeon segment, then you'll probably die. They are pretty difficult, but they are fair in my opinion. They just require you to know what you're doing. And sometimes that can be pretty hard if you've had a bit of a scatterbrained attempt and haven't really managed to build up very many items that work together, so you've got to be careful about that. Bosses oftentimes have their own themes that you've got to work around, and some special things they'll do, as well as summoning ads sometimes and stuff like that. And also, a lot of enemies, they have an attack type that will add something to your bag against your will, so you got to be careful about that. Like bees can add honey, and you get to choose where this honey is placed, but if an item gets completely covered in honey, it gets disabled for that battle. And then there's also slime, which will spread on its own and disable any items it completely covers, but you can spend energy to get rid of connected pieces of slime all at once if you want to. And then you've also got curses, which will have some sort of effect on whatever items you place them on. So you want to try and mitigate how powerful these things are by placing them on items where they'll be as least effective as possible, basically. Or you can choose to take straight health gauge damage and avoid the item if you want to, but this will quickly become untenable because the amount of damage that you'll need to take to keep avoiding these curses and stuff will build up to be a lethal level very quickly. In the campaign mode, once you're done with a dungeon run, once you beat a boss, you'll go back to the town and you can actually build stuff in the town. You have various different resources that you can spend to acquire new buildings, and a lot of these buildings will actually generate some of the other resources for you while you're dungeon crawling, which is handy, so you want a good number of those available at all times. And there are also other buildings that allow you to do stuff like research new gear to have appear in the dungeon runs themselves. You'll also get things like these quests from actual people. Once you have recruited some people back to town, they'll sometimes have quests for you, and these will be special dungeon runs where you start with a unique and different set of items than you normally would, and some other rules, like maybe you have to keep a certain item in your inventory the whole time or something like that. And they'll have a special reward if you manage to beat them, usually involving a bunch of resources and a spark, which allows you to craft keys to unlock deeper and deeper sections of the dungeon to progress the game. There are also multiple characters to play, and this is one of the game's strongest points because every character plays vastly differently from each other. They all have completely different rules to how they work. All the stuff that I've described to you up till this point is only for the starting character, Purse. There are several others that work entirely differently. Like, for instance, the character that plays more like a deck builder because they don't really rely on stuff being physically in their backpack all that much, but instead they get this like ethereal room that they can expand their backpack with like this ghostly stuff that doesn't hold physical items, but they can draw from a sort of deck of ghostly items that they can obtain, and they can use these in the same way that you would like cards in a deck builder, sort of drawing them and using them, and they refresh every battle, so that it makes them very flexible but a bit difficult to play because you have to worry about getting a good assortment of these, a deck of these things in order to actually make it work, which is very different from getting an assortment of normal physical items, so they play very differently. There's another character, for instance, that has a backpack made up of pockets of space rather than one large contiguous space. They purchase like Tetris pieces of space, and each pocket can have different effects, and sometimes they can actually affect other pockets, and there's some items that have mechanics based around what pocket they're in and stuff like that, and like what is with them. There's even a robot that uses like energy and stuff. So yeah, the overall character variety is awesome in this game because they're all so different. I think they could have easily made them similar, but just with a couple of differences in terms of how they leveled up or something like that. But no, they made them like entirely separate mechanically to where they are vastly different from each other. And I think it's really cool that the play styles are so different between each character that you basically have to learn each one individually to actually be good with them, because they have almost no crossover. And I did mention modding, by the way, so yeah, this game does have Steam Workshop support, and there are already tons of mods available that add entirely new items for you to find. Some themed around other games, like Terraria or The Binding of Isaac. Some are just new sets of things that someone wanted to try to make, but there are loads of them, so if you want to populate your Roguelite mode with a whole bunch of extra stuff, then there's tons of stuff for you to find on the Steam Workshop, and a lot of it is really, really cool, and surprisingly pretty well balanced oftentimes. So this is sort of one of those games that keeps on giving because of how mechanically varied the game is and how much content there is, as well as all the modding available for it. It creates a situation where it's really hard not to recommend it to people that like the genre, because it's not expensive. It's like $20. And for that price, there's just a load here to enjoy, which makes it really difficult to say no. So I would personally say if you enjoy roguelites, or if you enjoy turn-based RPGs, because this doesn't have to be played as a roguelite if you don't want it to, then there's a lot here to like. It is a fantastically original concept that goes for a classic video game trope of having a grid-based inventory and then makes the entire game based around it in some really unique and fun ways. So yeah, this is definitely a heavy recommend for me. It had an excellent early access campaign where it just continually improved and got more and more mechanically rich and varied as it went, and now that it's finally out, it is a fully realized RPG with a ton to offer. So I'll put the link in the description below this video to the Steam store page, so that you can go and check out Backpack Hero on your own time. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.